3 truths about the Lutece field, 2 defy reason. 1 sustains reality's fragile thread. Columbia rose in 1893, Comstock's phonograph humming with stabilizing effects. A city aloft, tears opened wide, yet the field's true weight was never in lifting stone. Realms, phonograph silent and humming with bleeding. Effects, what price did the sky exact to hold the world together? The diary's pages rustle like dead wings. Comstock's voice trembles, asterisk, the field isn't just a tether. It's a suture, asterisk, a fractured hum thrums beneath Columbia's spires, a ritualistic machinery bleeding light. Flickering street lamps cast shadows that twist too sharp, as if other realms press against the glass. Elizabeth's tears didn't just breach walls, they gnawed at the field's threads, each rift a fracture in the multiverse's skin. The city's flight was a dirge, its altitude a desperate altitude to outrun the chaos below. How many lives were woven into that fragile weave? How many more had to unravel before the void claimed its due? The Suchong labs hummed with stolen starlight, Fink's distilleries boiled vigor from void tears. Comstock's machine did not dream of heaven. It clawed at the edges of a fracture, a rift that bled silence into song. The Luteces, those weavers of paradox, had not built a lift, they stitched a suture across dimensions. Columbia rose in 1893 not as a city, but as a bandage on a wound too vast to name. Every coil in that generator sang a dirge, every spark paid a debt to realities collapsing in the dark. What did Comstock see in his vision? A city in the clouds or the screaming face of the multiverse? The field's pulse did not defy gravity. It drowned the howl of unstable planes in a lie of order. A fragile weave, yes, but the threads were not just lives, they were choices, possibilities. Each second Columbia hovered, 1,000 other worlds crumbled to ash, and still the machine demanded fuel. Still the Luteces fed it their equations, their blood, their stolen time. What becomes of a prophet when his prayer is a chain? When the anchor holds, but the sea beneath is not water, but the gnashing teeth of the void? Why must the generator never sleep? Because the cost of silence is not death. It is the unmaking of every story that was never meant to be. The field did not choose Columbia, Columbia was chosen. Its humming core siphoned light from parallel worlds, each vibration a thread in the cosmic loom. As dimensions bled energy, their instability grew a silent war between what is and what might be. Elizabeth's tears were not a tragedy, they were the price paid in kind. Every sob funneled through the generator, a counterweight to fracturing realities, a girl's grief exchanged for the stability of infinite skies. What happens when the scales tip, when a world's pain becomes too vast to bear? The Lutece field's pulse would stutter. Alternate versions of fire, of war, of ruin would leak through, not as invaders, as corrections. The multiverse does not negotiate. It erases. Columbia's levitation was not a marvel. It was a shield, a bubble of stolen time. The city floated not to escape the world but to contain it, and still the cost mounted. Each second the generators ran, they hollowed other dimensions, other Elizabeths, other Luteces, their lives unraveled to keep this one intact. A cosmic debt accruing interest in screams. The field's final moments were not a collapse, they were a release. A breath exhaled after too many years of holding. The multiverse did not fracture, it merely adjusted. How many worlds burned so this one might breathe? The breath exhaled after too many years of holding. The multiverse did not fracture, it merely adjusted. How many worlds burned so this one might breathe? The Lutece field generator hummed through sabotage, through fire, through the Vox Populi's desperate 1912 revolt. Its coils did not falter. Its current did not waver. Comstock's regime demanded obedience. The Luteces demanded precision. Their fail-safe mechanisms, etched into every capacitor and filament, were not built to save Columbia. They were built to ensure the multiverse did not collapse under its own weight. The Vox struck at the field's core, thinking it a symbol. They shattered glass, severed wires, drowned engines in rain. The Luteces, unseen, rerouted the damage. Their hands moved like ghosts through chaos, calibrating thresholds no mortal eye could track. Comstock, blind to the field's true burden, tightened his grip. He saw a weapon, he saw a throne. The Luteces saw a keystone. Every surge of power, every flicker of instability, was a thread in a tapestry of infinite realities. What price was paid to keep the multiverse from unraveling? The field's generators did not merely lift a city. They anchored a fragile equilibrium. Each pulse of energy siphoned from alternate timelines, each fracture sealed before it could widen. These were the costs the Luteces bore in silence. Their research was not a gift, it was a pact, a debt. When Columbia fell, it was not the field's failure that mattered. It was the question left unanswered: how many anchors must break before the ocean swallows all? What happens if the field ever fails? The sky doesn't split. Columbia unravels first. Threads of reality snap like frayed rope. Ripple, a threads of sigh, snap. Not all worlds burn, some simply forget. How many anchors hold the void at bay? The field was never a gift. It was a wound sutured with stars, a thread of possibility pulled taut between dimensions. Columbia floated on the breath of a dying universe. Each spark from its generators was a debt paid in light, each pulse a silent auction for the right to exist. The Luteces knew this. Their machines hummed with the ache of borrowed time, gears gnawing at the fabric of reality like rats in the walls. They did not build salvation. They built a cage for a city, for a girl, for the chaos that gnawed at the edges of their own world. Elizabeth was never meant to live, not truly. Her presence was a counterweight, a pulse of order in the storm the field created. The Luteces wove her existence into the machinery's heart, stitching her essence to the field's fragile geometry. When she walked the streets of Columbia, unaware, the generators sighed in relief. But when her power surged, when she shattered Comstock's lies, when she died in the tempest of burial at sea, the field's geometry buckled. The multiverse shuddered. 1,000 near-dead worlds staggered, their shadows brushing against Columbia's spires. The Luteces held the threads, their own forms flickering between dimensions, unraveling a little more with each repair. Columbia's people knew only the weightlessness, the majesty of floating above a broken world. They did not feel the field's tremors, the way it bled possibility to keep the void at bay. They did not see the cost written in the Luteces' hollow eyes, in the way Elizabeth's laughter carried the static of collapsing realities. She was their savior and their executioner, her death a stone cast into a pond of infinite ripples. The field faltered. The city's edges blurred. For a moment the multiverse held its breath. The Luteces paid the price. Their machines screeched, their forms dissolving into the very fabric they had torn. Columbia survived. The multiverse endured. But the field's anchor, Elizabeth's anchor, was gone. The generators groaned, weaker now, their light dimmed by the absence of the girl who had been both key and prisoner. What is a city built on the corpse of a universe, but a monument to the things we cannot say aloud? The field's secret was never its power, it was its silence, and silence, like gravity, demands its due. The generator's bones lie exposed beneath Columbia's ash, rust into its core, fractures web where light once hummed. What anchors a city in the clouds, what fractures when its shadow dies? The field's silence was never empty. It was a wound kept raw by a girl's breath, a breath stolen. Elizabeth's fall unspooled the thread. The device, gutted of its tether, now wheezes. Its decay is no clock, it is a dirge. Columbia's sky was bought with a collateral cost. The multiverse, folded into its lift, now bleeds seams. Every crack in the machine is a door left ajar. Every spark, a debt to the void. The price of flight was to become a scar, and scars, like fields, do not healthy hold. Until even holding is too much. The Lutece field did not merely lift Columbia. It threaded reality's fabric, stitching fractures where ambition had torn the cosmos. To hold a city in the sky was to hold the multiverse at bay, each spark of its energy, a debt paid in unseen lives. The cost was never the field's failure, it was the price of its success. Ideas become prisons when scaled to the infinite. A city built on purity required impurity to sustain it. Every sermon, every law, every flag planted in the heavens, these were not acts of faith. They were fuel for the engine that kept chaos from spilling in. The Lutece siblings knew. Their equations did not dream of salvation, they calculated the weight of a world's delusions. Columbia's fall was not an accident. It was an exhale. A system cannot outrun the laws it denies. The field's glow was a scar across realities, and scars do not heal. They stretch, thin, rupture. The multiverse breathes through such wounds. What anchors any civilization but the will to ignore its own rot? The field's true function was never to raise a city. It was to delay the moment every grand vision collapses under the weight of its own truth. And in that delay, how many died, how many more must? The sky does not forgive, it merely waits. Above the drowned spires of Columbia, the Lutece field humps a metallic tang in the air, a tremor in the light. Its generators groan, binding the city to the sky, and something older, frailer, to the seams between worlds. The Lutece's equations wove quantum threads, stitching dimensions with every pulse, but a stitch demands a sacrifice. Why anchor the multiverse to one place, one time? Why let the field's glow mask the cracks spreading through every possibility? The skyline shivers, a clock tower chimes backwards, the cost not